Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I got a question here that I've had on my list for a while, haven't answered, but I just wrote up a chapter in the new book that I'm writing about this, or pretty close to about this. So I figured I'd do a video here. So this question, it comes from Rob, and Rob says, "Hey John, thanks so much for your videos. They've been a great source of information for me as I'm trying to prepare for a career in software development. My question is, what do you actually need to know to be ready for your first job in development? Some sample coding interview questions I see make me question whether I could ever be ready. I'm not very good at solving tricky programming problems, at least not yet, but I also see some new software engineers talk about how the most important thing is to be persistent, willing to learn, and so forth. I know I need to practice good interview skills, show that I'm a self-starter and that I enjoy learning, but what do you think I actually need to know prior to applying to junior positions in software development?" Rob. So Rob, there's sort of a contradiction in what you've said here, and I'm going to point this out from the beginning because I think this is sort of critical. You said that there's tricky programming problems that you've seen, like interview questions, and you don't think you'll ever be able to solve them, or you'll be able to solve them. But you said that a lot of software developers have told you that persistence, right, and willingness to do whatever it takes, those type of attributes are important to get your job as a software developer. So if the second is true, then I think you know what you need to do for the first, right? And again, so I'm just saying, like, if you got what it takes, then you got to take it all the way. So there's no reason why you can't solve those tricky problems or learn how to. In fact, if you stumble across things like that you feel like that you can't do, you need to figure out how to do them. But more importantly than just figuring out how to do them, you need to figure out why. Where is the gap? Why did you not learn this in learning to become a software developer? And then also, how can you learn this? What is the best way? Because this is probably going to open up a whole avenue of topics or things that you need to learn in order to advance your skill level, to be able to feel more comfortable. Because I guarantee you, and here's the thing, I'm going to get to kind of the meat of your question in a minute here, but I want to address this first because I want you to realize that if you're going to do what it takes, and if you're going to be persistent and willing, you're going to have to go down these trails. You're not going to have the luxury of looking at a problem and saying this is too hard, or I don't need to know this, or whatever it is. Not that you need to know everything, but in this case, I think you should be pursuing some of these problems, because here's what's going to happen. Because if you go into an interview, well, whether or not they ask you questions like this, you're not going to feel confident. You're not going to feel comfortable. You're going to be wondering, I hope they don't ask me this kind of a question. I hope they don't ask me to write an algorithm on a whiteboard, right? And that's going to suck. I did a blog post on coding interviews on whiteboard. You should read this. I'll probably do, I might have done a video, I don't remember, but I'll probably do a video about this, talking about why this is important to get the skill, whether you agree with it or not. I don't necessarily happen to agree that that's the best way to test a software developer, but you got to do what it takes, right? This is the whole point here. So I kind of want to lay that groundwork first. So on the other hand, if you know how to do this, right? If you have read a book like Cracking the Coding Interview, which I highly recommend, even though it competes with soft skills and takes the #1 spot all the time, but it is a really good book. Because if you read through that book and you can solve those problems in there, then when you go into an interview, whatever they ask you is going to be fun. It's going to be easy. You're going to be so confident, right? You're going to be sure that you're going to be able to do it, and that's going to make a world of difference. So get that, right? Don't avoid that kind of stuff. Like, avoiding shit is a bad idea. So now let's talk about what you actually need to know as a junior software developer to get your job. So here's what I would do. This is what I would lay out. Have a goal. What kind of software developer are you trying to be, right? Because if you're like, I just want to get a job being a software developer, okay, then I don't know. What do you need to know? There's a huge whole world of technologies and programming languages and frameworks. You can't know it all. So instead of saying, I want to be a software developer, say this, or even junior software developer, say, I want to be a Java developer that develops with the Spring framework, right? Or I want to be a Node.js web developer that uses whatever that uses whatever web technology or whatever web framework, or whatever it is. Maybe I want to do Node.js and Angular, whatever it is. Pick the stack. Pick the type of developer you're going to be, right? There's like the mean stack, and there's all these stacks. I'm not going to name them all, but you can figure it out. You can figure out, okay, I want to be a web developer, I want to be a backend developer, I want to be a game developer, an iOS or an app developer, right? And then you can figure out what the technology stack you're going to use is. Now you've got something specific. Now I can tell you what you need to know to get a job as a junior developer. And now I don't need to tell you because you know. Because if you said, man, I want to be a Node.js developer that uses Angular on the front end, okay, well, obviously, then you can say, well, I need to know probably how to do web development, HTML and CSS. I need to know JavaScript, obviously. I need to know Node.js. I need to know Angular. And maybe I need some kind of a database to be able to pull data from. I need to know how to interact with that. Now you've got something, right? And if you can do all those things, then you could get a job as a junior web developer. Maybe not even a junior one. Maybe you could start a little higher up the chain. Maybe you could just get a regular web developer job, even without experience. Because if you know all this stuff, and you can prove that you know all this stuff. So I would say, number one, figure out specifically what kind of developer do you want to be. Figure out the stack. Make it as specific as possible. That's number one. Number two, learn the stuff you need to know for that stack. Number three, now you can focus on the ancillary skills, right? Job interviews, algorithm type of coding questions, right? But you're going to be able to Google now for the specific type of interview. What do people ask in a Node.js interview or an Angular interview, right? And you're going to be able to answer those, figure out what those questions are, prep for the interview specifically. Other thing I would do, and I've talked about this before, about doing a portfolio. Now, I said that a blog would be better, and I still agree with that. So you might want to create a blog that's going to help you get a portfolio, get some apps out there. If you're brand new and you've never gotten a job in development before, as a software developer, you should have something in your portfolio that shows that you can actually write code. A GitHub account, have some open source projects that you've worked on, that you've created, that you can show the code for, that you can show that you've built this app, and then have a blog that's talking about, that you know what you're talking about, right? That's talking about topics. You don't have to be an expert, but if you have competency, it'll come out in your writing if you're able to do simple tutorials and talk about some of the concepts, and maybe especially if you're opinionated, right? You're like, okay, I believe that we should develop Angular apps this way because this. That shows proficiency, that shows passion, it shows a lot of things that people are going to want to hire for. So I don't mean to throw too much at you here, but it's not as difficult as what it may seem. You're going to learn the technology. You're going to know specifically what the technology is, so that you're proficient. You're going to have some kind of portfolio to show, and hopefully a blog. And then comes the interview skills part of that, right? Is doing mock interviews. Figuring out also, be strategic about this. What companies do you want to apply for, right? What companies are likely to hire in those job positions? Hopefully you're looking up job description for the specific type of software developer job that you want to get, so that you'll know what kind of skills and what kind of things that they're looking for and what companies are hiring there. Then also let's not just write a resume and submit it on monster.com or hire.com or whatever. That's fine, but instead let's figure out, okay, how can I meet some of the developers or employees that are already working at some of these companies, so I can network with them, so I can get a personal referral. Maybe you want to go to some user groups and some meetups, and maybe you want to start reaching out and contacting some of these people ahead of time and build your network up, so that when you are ready, when you want to apply for the job, you say, hey, Joe, who works at XYZ company, I am just starting out as a Node.js developer, and here's my resume. I would love to work for your company. We've talked a few times and had coffee. Would you think I'd be a good fit for a job there, or would you mind submitting my resume? I noticed this job opened up. That's how you do it, right? This is the way to do this that makes sense. And again, everything I'm doing here is strategic, right? Think about this. Don't think about, what people tell you, how you apply for a job or get a job. Think strategically, right? And adapt my plan to your exact situation, right? Think about what is going to make sense in this case. How are you going to get from point A to point B? What steps do you need to take to get there? You can make it hard or you can make it easy, but I think if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to be persistent, if you're willing to figure out all these steps and the ways that you can make this happen, it's going to be a lot easier. So anyway, long answer, but I think this question deserves some thought. And I think a lot of people trying to get into software development, they think it's so hard because they're not thinking about this clearly. They're not using their brain. They're just like, okay, I guess I need to learn a programming language and a bunch of technologies and then put together a resume and hopefully I can get an internship or hopefully someone will hire me for some low-level junior developer position. Yeah, maybe you'll luck into a position that way, but if you're a little bit more strategic, if you know what technologies you're going to learn, if you have a specific role in mind, I'm going to be this kind of developer. You don't always have to be. You can change that later, but to get your first job, get some experience, be specific. Be the guy that they're like, man, this guy knows his stuff. He knows exactly what we need. That's gonna make up for the experience that you lack. So anyway, be strategic. Hopefully this helps you. If you have a question for me, email me at john@simpleprogrammer.com. And if you like this video or you know someone who's starting in web development and wants to get in, it doesn't have to be web development, software development, share them this video. I would appreciate that. Trying to hit, hopefully by the end of this year, my goal is still to hit 100,000 subscribers. We're like 26,000. Thank you all for that. But anyway, I'll talk to you next time. Take care.